Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for taking the time to join today's session. Before we begin, a quick technical check. If you could briefly confirm in our chat here that you can see the presentation and hear me loud and clearly, that would be great. So let me check that. Just a thumbs up would be fine. Good, perfect. Thanks for confirming. That looks good. Seems like we're all set up. And with that, everyone who just joined, welcome again. We're very pleased to have you here today for this session today on Payroll Outsourcing Contract Audit. Eliminate the clauses costing you millions. That's a bold headline, I know. But what today is actually about is a topic that is often very underestimated, and it can have such a significant financial impact. It's about the structure and quality of your payroll outsourcing contracts. And for that, I invited an expert on our site. And today here with me, I have Antonio. Hi, Antonio.
Hello, Tina. Thank you for having me today here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're doing the session today with us. Let me briefly introduce you, Antonio. You are here at Zalaris as a key account manager, so you work very close with customers. You have over 30 years of experience in global payroll and HR outsourcing, which is very impressive. You have a lot of experience by that with managing complex multi-country payroll setups. You bring in lots of experience when it comes to contract negotiation, SLA governance, pricing structures, and of course also operational frameworks. So I'm really looking forward to get some insights from you today. The idea is that you do it very hands-on, that you talk about where contracts typically fail, and more importantly, how to fix them. So looking forward to that. And as always, for everyone, please feel free to raise questions and observations in the chat throughout the session. We may have time for a live Q&A at the end, but we will, of course, also do follow-ups to dive in deeper in case we don't manage to answer all your questions. But definitely use the chat. And by the way, my name is Tina Neber. I'm leading marketing here at Zalaris. I'll be your point of contact after the session, and I will share the presentation materials as well as the recording after the call with you, so you get everything you need right afterwards. And with that, I'll hand over to you, Antonio. Looking forward your insights.
Thank you, Tina, for that nice presentation. And yes, what we are going to see here is a list of recommendations based on the experience that I had with many customers. And things are condensed, the key points that you have to bear in mind. No? You know that outsourcing payroll sounds great, but you have less administrative work, fewer compliance headaches, and more time to focus on what really matters in your business. But let's be honest, negotiating a payroll outsourcing contract can be, a minefield. For example, what is included in the service? That's a good question. How do you make sure you are getting a fair deal, or what happens if things go wrong? There is a right way to handle this, and that's exactly what this webinar is about. No? Over the next few slides, I will break down each key part of a payroll sourcing contract, what to look for, what to negotiate, and how to protect your company from bad surprises. Each section will cover a critical aspect. For example, defining the scope of services, which is quite important. It's the first step. Setting clear performance expectations, the famous SLAs. Understanding the pricing model, which is quite important for your contract. Managing security and compliance, and also handling contract changes. That's something that needs to be reflected as well in your contract. By the end of this webinar, you will know exactly what to focus on when discussing payroll outsourcing contracts with potential providers. We will give you a checklist at the end of the session with questions that your provider needs to respond to you very clearly. No ambiguity are allowed in these answers, and that's one of the first and most important advice that I give you in your contract. No ambiguity, clarity in all the clauses that you are going to negotiate. So let's start by how to negotiate an outsourcing contract. These are general rules that we need to give you when starting and to keep in mind during the whole negotiation. For you to know the structure of the presentation that you see on the screen, all have the same format. We will see the key risks that you have to take into account related to the topic in discussion, also what to focus on during the negotiations, and also some pieces of advice about what to avoid and what are your red flags that you have to keep in mind. As a first advice, I will give you a set of this recommendation. For example, as a whole, the major risk is ambiguity. That's something that you need to pursue during to avoid during your negotiation. I recommend to you to be creative as well and imagine a extreme situation in your organization and test and challenge your provider with that situation to see their reaction and how they tackle that situation. That is very good, practical aspect during your negotiation. For example, what if the unions require to set multiple changes in your payroll and in the way you calculated your wages just before the next payroll cycle, which is very close in time. So that asks this kind of question, and they have to provide to you a very clear answer. It is a must to have a clarity on the SLA as well. That we will see later, as well as the pricing and the responsibilities, how you share your responsibility with your provider. The responsibility should be mapped and clearly assigned in the contract. This is important when defining the scope of services, and that we will see in the next slide. You have to avoid, marketing language, and sorry, Tina, for you, but in the contract, the marketing language should be avoided. I have seen a few cases in which, the contract just state as, mentioned in the offer, then we will do it, things in that or in this way. No, you should recover things from the offer, but those that are concrete, that are very specific, and then of course you can do that. But in general, the lack of clarity is one of the most issues that you may have if you don't treat it clearly in your contract. Okay, defining the scope. This is something very important, and it's the first thing that you have to keep in mind, even before you think in signing or getting an offer for a payroll. This is one question that you need to do yourself. What exactly do you want your provider to handle? And that will define the scope. Because not all these outsourcing agreements are the same. Depending on how much control you want to keep, then you will choose the right model. That normally are three models, going from the less responsibility for the provider to the most responsibilities, and you can combine these three elements or models as you need or as you wish. The lower model is the payroll processing model, in which you handle the data entry, and the provider only processes the payroll calculations, and the reporting and on the compliance remains on your side. So the provider only push the buttons, prepare the system. Of course, you get the data entry, and your provider just push the button. The rest continues being your responsibility. The managed payroll service, which is the next level, you keep being responsible for the data entry, but the provider will do the processing of the payroll, but also the compliance and the legal reporting after the payroll run with the local, government authorities. No? And the last is the comprehensive payroll services, or CPS, which is called. No? The provider manages everything from the data entry to the reporting to the authorities. I have to say that the data entry is done by the provider, but you have to provide this information, and your provision is done in some format, formulas and questionnaires that can automatize the reception of the information. But the customer has to reflect all this. Sorry, the provider has to reflect all the input data into the system. And each model has pros and cons, and the right one for you depends on your internal capabilities and level of control you want to maintain. You have to think yourself, what are you able to do and to keep in your side, no? For example, who will handle interactions with the government? It's a good question, but also with your employees. Who has to respond directly to your employees the question that may arise from them? It is you, it is your provider, and so on and so on. So this is quite important because a vague contract leads to confusion and extra costs for sure. No? A well-defined scope ensures that both you and your provider are on the same page, minimizing surprises and setting the right expectation from the service. So in general, avoid descriptions that are too generic or specifically lack of ownership in the activities that we have outlined in this slide. Okay, so next point, the service level agreement, or SLA. They are quite famous, and these are quite important because the payroll is not just about signing a contract and crossing your fingers, no, hoping for the best. That's not the way it should work, no. So you need clear and measurable, which is important, commitment from your provider to ensure they feel your expectations. No, they meet your expectation. An SLA is basically a set of warranties that defines how the provider is performing the service. Without it, you are relying on trust, and that's it. No, the risky game. It's something that you should avoid when the payroll is involved in the service. And what should the SLA include? There are a few elements, but I will outline here a few of them, which are the most important one. Accuracy, for sure. No? What is the acceptable margin of error in payroll? And as a clue, I would say that it should be close to zero, of course. The timeliness, because how quickly and how much in time your provider will deliver whatever is delivered. Would be, the payroll calculation, pay slips, or the legal reporting to the local authorities. No? Also, the compliance. How will the provider ensure tax? It's done in a timely manner and also in the right way. It is calculated also in the right way. And also system availability. You are using a system, and the SLA should reflect the availability of the system. That should be like the accuracy close to 100%. But you have to agree that there are some margins in which the system needs to be maintained, or there could be a communication code or whatever. But it should be very, very high as well. No? And the SLA is quite important because the SLA keep the provider accountable. It's something the performance drops. You have written commitment on what should be, the level that you expect. And also it helps you just to avoid operational chaos because mistakes lead to unhappy employees if they receive the mistaken payslip, for example, and unneeded headaches. And also, SLA provides a leverage for penalties or service credit if something goes wrong or beyond the limits that you have established with your with your provider within the contract, then they have accountability that is translated into financial cost, and they have to pay for it in terms of credits or whatever is included in the contract, discounts or even contract termination rights that we will see afterwards. So a good SLA is your safety net, especially in payroll outsourcing contract. It's quite important to have a very well defined the SLA levels, and again, the accuracy is very important in terms of the language when defining the SLA description. Okay, so next, the pricing, which is quite important, but it's a major factor, pricing, right? But the reality is that the cheapest option is not always unnecessarily is the best one, right? If you don't fully understand your pricing structure, you might end up paying a lot more than expected. So there are a few models for the pricing. The most common is the price per employee per month, the famous PEPEN, which is a fixed monthly fee for each employee. It's good because it's predictable, but you need to watch out extra charges, one for things that are not included in this PEPEN fee. Other is a payment per payroll run, which is a pay based on how often the payroll is run in your company. And also there is hybrid models which combine things from one part on to the other. But even so, if there is very well defined the model, there are other elements that may lead to overcharge or charge more again. No? For example, support charges. That some providers charge extra costs for employees inquiries. For example, you have a limit or a range, and if it goes beyond that range, then you will get extra charge. That could be for employee inquiries or for whatever thing that is included in your contract that it can be controlled in elements, or mail responded, or calls attended, or whatever. Also, compliance and reporting fees. No? There are some reports or tax filings that may come with an added cost. For example, many countries need to run an off-cycle payroll to be compliant with local regulations. For example, I know that in Greece, Austria, or in Spain, in Portugal, they have what they call a 13th or 14th payroll run, apart from the 12th monthly payrolls. And in some cases, this is not included. In other, they are included. So take very clear what is included in the pricing, because that will avoid future charges from things that you expected to be included, because it's a legal requirement. Be aware that some things are legal required but are not included because they are coming so often, or they may come or not, but the provider decides to charge them apart. No? And also the change request. This it's something that may happen. No? Any sudden or unexpected change, either in the system or in the operations, may be linked to extra charges. So work with your provider in some example of changes and trying to determine the fixed prices linked to those examples. Just put, as I said before, extreme cases and ask your provider if this is included or not, and if not, how you would include. No? For example, the creation of a new wage type, or the creation of a new locations in your company. That are classical examples. To support all these additional services, you negotiate a rate card. Rate card is a set of hourly or daily fees of the people that may intervene in the service for doing something. These people, use the locations or the seniority to determine the fee assigned to each of those roles. No. So, in terms of protecting your budget that you have for your service, ensure that the price is aligned with your growth as well. What happens if there is a new acquisition, there is a new set of employees coming to the service, or the other way around, there's a carve out. Or also defined very well and ask your provider what is included for extra charges, to define a list of those elements. Okay, so this is the payroll sourcing should be a mechanism to save cost, but not to have financial surprises. Good. Going to the next point, security, which is an important aspect as well. Why? Because you are going to hand over to your provider very, highly sensitive data of your employees. It's a security and compliance is not on top of your priorities. You may have get into serious trouble either with your employees or with the local authorities. No, think about it. The information that you have about your employees includes. For example, the address of your employees, the bank details, the salaries, tax information, which is quite important. No? A data breach in your system may lead, as I said, to financial penalties, even a reputational damage for your organization. No? When choosing your payroll provider, make sure that these critical security standards are included. For example, data encryption. The data needs to be encrypted from storage to transit to storage again. Access control. Make sure that who can set and get into your system to see what kind of information, what can be modified, deleted, or just seen, right? Make sure that there is a multi-factor authentication in your system, in your protocol of security. That, of course, your provider is certified in the ISO 27001, which is a standard that is a must today. That is a red flag if your provider is not certified. And also, which is GDPR compliance, making sure that employees' information is handled according to local data protection laws. In Europe, we have one, but all countries have similar data protection rules. No, what about disaster recovery plan and business continuity plans? These are plans that should be included in your contract, but not only that, that should be reviewed every or tested every year, and you should agree with with your provider that they have tested every year these plans, mainly aimed to get that security that the business will continue after a disaster. For example, there is a fire in the offices, or nobody else can go to the office, like the COVID-19 that we have this experience in the very recent years, or there is something that you have lost your data for any reason. You have to make sure that you have a backup in place. No, so that's something that you need to check, as well as audit and accountability about having an audit in your system. You have the right to make an audit. A testing of the disaster recovery plan or the business continuity plans is a way of audit your provider. So in your contract, specify that you have the right to request an audit to your provider. And also transparency on how the data is managed and stored. And also in case of a data breach, you need the right to set a procedure how to react and how to do things when following a data breach. Well, going forward and moving forward, an important thing is the contract changes, because the payroll sourcing contract is not something that you signed and forget about it. Over the time, your business will evolve, and also your payroll needs will change as well. Now, if your contract doesn't allow to reflect these changes, then you may have a problem, because the service may, in the short run, may no longer fit your needs. So that's why it's crucial to have a clear process for managing changes and additional project as well. No, common changes are the company growth, for example, and you have restructured, and then you need to adapt the new employees by creating new locations or new wage types or new collective labor agreements or whatever. Or there are maybe technology upgrades, and the system needs to be updated, and you want the system not to change to the latest technology, but also to incorporate some changes that are optional but interesting for your service. No. Also, process improvement. If you detect over the time that doing some changes in the system and in the procedure that will reduce the cost of doing other activities, then there should be a mechanism to do this and to implement this with your provider. So, for example, you should have a formal change request process to define how changes are proposed and evaluated and approved. You should have a cost transparency because you need to have very clear how much the change will cost, either by the timing being done by one of those profiles that we have defined in the rate card in the pricing clause, I would say, if you remember, or either the price of the total change or the time that every profile we devote to this change. No, some examples of these changes we have seen it, but also what happened with the bigger changes that are not just a change in the system and the configuration. That's our projects as well. And projects, normally the limit is 20 days, 25 days, whatever is beyond that range, threshold of days should be considered as a project that leads to another, governance model who has to be the project manager is going to be managed by the customer, by the provider, by the team. There would be governance calls and follow-up calls, meeting with together just to see how it is evolving. That's something that should be included also in your contract. Okay, so you need this to be reflected, and without a well defined change management process, even a small adjustment can turn into unneeded headaches. So structure well your contract so that changes are included, foreseen in your contract. Okay. The duration, another important topic that doing it well may avoid you some headaches. No, how long should a payroll outsourcing contract last? That's something. It's a very good question. You probably may not know that, but you may wonder yourself what happens if the provider underperforms, and can you just go out and exit the contract just for free? The answer is no. I mean, so that's the reason why you have to take care about these clauses. The contract duration, it's quite important, even though you may not think about it now. You have to reflect that into your contract. No. The duration, most common duration, comes from 3 to 7 years. And that is that long because changing the provider and switching the provider for the payroll is a complex activity. That's something that you shouldn't want to do very, very often. The short-term contract goes from 1 to 3 years and offer flexibility, but might not attract the best pricing. Nevertheless, long-term contracts from 5 to 7 years provide more, stability and better price, but can become a problem if you are not happy with the service. So these are, the trade-off that you have to keep in mind. The best practice is that you are, committed to a long-term contract, but agreeing in a review point to review the performance every 1 or 2 years to evaluate performance and negotiate terms if you need it in that very moment when you are negotiating a potential termination of the contract. The renewal clauses, are they automatic or negotiated? Many contracts just automatically just renew the contract unless you formally opt out with a set of period in which it's a pre-notice period of commonly 90 days or 3 months. Could be a good notice period. No? The pros of this approach is that automatic renewal saves time if you are happy with the service. But if you miss it and you are not happy with the service, that may become in a big problem. So you should get into your contract to review the performance before getting into automatic renewal. And what about penalties and exit strategies? If you need to end a contract early, be aware that some providers charge early termination fees, which can be a fixed fee or percentage of the remaining service time, the contract time. Mind that these fees have the function of compensating the provider for the investment during the service that needs to be recovered has been calculated to be recovered during the long length of the contract. So, the closer out to the end, these, penalties may be less, and in the other way around. But the best practice is to negotiate a fair exit terms and include a performance clause with the provider, meaning that if the provider fails to meet the SLAs consistently, you should have the right to terminate without any penalties. And also plan for a transition support if you decide to terminate the contract. Make sure that the contract specifies that how the data is going to be handled and how the transition process will be handled. So as a key takeaway, a well-structured contract gives you flexibility and protection, but because you don't want just to be locked into a bad deal, neither you want to renegotiate every year how to continue with the contract. No? It's a matter of finding the right balance between pros and cons that you have seen before. Okay. In any case, the contract should go in your favor. The renewal should go in your favor because the renewal is something that it's outside the concrete, terms, and you are talking about the future in or something that has expired or very close to get expired. Good. And then there would be a termination. No one likes to think about how to end relationship, but that's something, being realistic, that will come sooner or later. Better if later than sooner. No. But there are many reasons. Probably you have outgrown your provider who is not able to tackle the whole needs that you have because you have grown a lot, or you have found a better deal with your another provider or whatever. No, there may be many reasons. No, so you have to plan the exit. A bad exit plan can you leave you with lost data, with service disruption, or unexpected cost. So a good exit plan makes the transition seamless, ensuring payroll keeps running without any issue. No? If you don't negotiate a good exit plan, you may face data retrieval issues. For example, not able to recover historical data from your employees, or you may have a service disruption because your provider, during the transition that with another provider, your current provider is not, servicing the payrolls, and you need it during that process that your provider will give you the service that you need. No? Or there is a transition between both the old and the new provider, and the cost assigned to this is very high. So you should get those transition costs into the contract without many very expensive fees that are not reflected in the rate card, for example, that you have now. So before signing the contract, ensure it includes the notice period, as I said, the data transfer and format. It's very important the format, because you need your data in an easy format, able to upload into the system using Excel or whatever, but not paper or payslip in PDF. That's maybe okay, but you need to automatize the transfer and the migration to the other provider. So good. And how to organize this when the time is coming? Just plan ahead. Don't wait until the last minute to start thinking about the transition, and begin preparing months in advance based on what you are included in your contract. So communicate very clearly. You have to inform the employees that are the key stakeholder, that the change will come, and you have to communicate it early. And also, it's important, test your new system. All the providers should offer to their customers some demo system where they can test the solution, but also to test the new solution to make sure that the results are very close to the previous one, doing parallel test or parallel run, or whatever mechanism you want to do it. If there is you have it clear, reflect that into the contract. Okay. So good. We are just approaching to the last part of the webinar. And how to select the right outsourcing provider. These are general advice or general recommendation about what you should do when selecting the right provider and doing the right selection or decision. So, okay, so when comparing provider, you have to look for expertise in your industry. Not all payroll providers are the same or are equal. Some specializes in a specific industry or company size in terms of market. So make sure that they understand your sector regulations and payroll complexity, technology and integration capabilities. Of course, their system should be able to not only to be usable and very friendly, like from the user experience, but also they need to integrate with your own legacy system. Shall it be accounting or the internal HRIS system from HR, whatever. But they need to offer to you a good integration capabilities. The service model and support to make sure that you get a dedicated account manager. That is important. You don't want to end your days just getting help or asking your provider using a chatbot. You need someone that cares you, and that's quite important when dialoguing, not during the service, during the exit process, and what is even more important, during the contract negotiation, when you start the relationship. So of course, I have mentioned as well compliance and security standard. They should be certified in the most recent standards in terms of security. You should be able to have a very transparent pricing model, and that's something that is also covered in the checklist that we have. All these questions, and we will see later on, should be reflected in your checklist, and you need to make sure that you get the answer that you deserve, as I said at the very beginning, with no ambiguity at all, not very clearly. So our recommendation is to do a short list of 3-4 providers. You may request for proposal, an RFP, where they can detail their services and their conditions. we recommend to you to ask tough questions and about compliance, security, and so on. Also check reference and client reviews. Don't just trust the sales pitch, and test their system. As I said before as well, there are systems that they are provided with their own system that you can test and you can put on your fingers, just to make sure that the system reacts as you expect. Okay, choosing the right payroll provider is not just about cost. It's about all this reliability, security, and long-term partnership. Take your time and ask the right questions. And for you, as I said before, the checklist is a very good tool to do that. Okay. And a final summary and takeaways. We have covered every key aspect of negotiating a payroll outsourcing contract, from defining the scope of services to selecting the right provider that we have just seen, managing SLA, the pricing, security, and how to exit the plan, right? As a set of recommendation, start with a clear scope of services. Define strong SLAs with a very clear language, no ambiguity, and not vague sentences. Understand the pricing model and watch for hidden costs. Ask what is included and what is not to be defined in the pricing model. Prioritize the security and compliance aspect in your contract. Also manage the contract changes in the right way and make sure that your contract includes that process for changes. Don't get stuck in bad contracts. There should be mechanism to get out with a very easy dialogue and knowing the consequences of that decision. And finally, just choose the right provider by getting this checklist in play, and as a good tool to make sure that you get a good contract at the end of the day. So as a final thought, what I would say is that the outsourcing payroll should bring peace of mind, not problems and headaches. The goal of the outsourcing payroll is not to make your life easier nor harder. So take the time to negotiate a strong contract with your provider. So that's it. Take a look. You can take a look at this checklist, and the way it works is very easy. It help to assess either an existing contract or draft any agreement before your signature. You get the signature on it. It provides a structured way to verify whether the key contractual protections are clearly covered. Each point should be reviewed and rated as fully addressed, partially addressed, or not addressed at all, or not applicable. And the review should also capture supporting evidence, clauses, references, and so on, corresponding to the risk level of every aspect. Particular attention should be given to the high risk items that are missing or only partially covered. The result should be then be used to strengthen negotiations, especially around SLAs, pricing transparency, as I said, exit terms, and security. Overall, this framework that give you is based on sourcing best practices and focused on the areas that most affect value delivery and risk exposure. So, in summary, a strong payroll sourcing contract should be something that needs to have a very concrete and straightforward method. That this checklist it's there to help you on that mission. Okay, so thank you very much for this for listening to all these slides. And I hope that you have any question, just put it in the chat. And if there is no time, I will just answer those questions by email. Okay.
Thank you, Antonio. There indeed are a couple of questions in the chat. We are a bit running out of time, but let's try to squeeze in at least two. So the first question is somebody is not sure if you didn't say it or if you if the person just overheard. But what about who should we get involved in the project team from the first stage or in the deal team? What would you recommend, like on the customer side?
Yeah, good question. Yes. Definitely, your HR director should be included in the deal team, as well as the payroll administrator and manager at that level, and also the IT department or any representative. When talking related to pricing as well, procurement representative should be there. But my recommendation is this team that you said, prepare in advance each meeting that you have with your provider, so you have a clearly decided the role and matter of everyone during the negotiation. And also another recommendation is that you make a very strong meeting minute after each meeting that you have with your provider. Record it. There are very good AI tool that could transcribe the meeting and set a very good meeting minute, and prepare in advance. Okay. One thing that I also recommend is that if you are a multi-country company, and be aware that you may have decisions covering other countries. And it's a common human reaction. If you impose some decision without the intervention of the local management, then you may have a problem getting the buy-in from that country if you have not counted with them during negotiations. So getting them involved, specifically for the big countries, if you are managing all this from the headquarters, just take that into account. But it's a very good point, that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we find a short answer, even though I think it's not so easy. But it's on these case management tools that you pointed out. Somebody's asking if that is really necessary and what value these tools bring in.
Yeah, that's yeah, because I have stated how important is the SLA and how important is that you keep track of the performance of your provider. And the case management tool is key for that, because you reflect all the issues, all the queries, all the problems that you have had. And there is a time in which it is counting the time that it gets you to respond. And also many tools are used to encrypt and scramble the information so that when send it and in and out, it follows, is compliant with the rules for security. So it's crucial to have that. There are many of them, and it's important that a good tool is used for that, because procure better control, as I said, and faster resolution times, and you can measure SLA much better. So definitely, it's not stated, but make sure that your contract includes the usage of these kind of tools.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for clarifying. We have a couple of more questions, but there's no quick yes or no answer to that. So I would say we just get back to you via email, or we can also schedule follow-up calls. But let me then close the session for now. We definitely covered a lot of ground in a relatively short time, so thank you for structuring it that good. There were a lot of things in there, from structural weaknesses in payroll contracts to practical approaches for improving the scope definitions, SLAs, pricing models. And I also appreciate that you covered the very sensitive topic of exit strategies. So you will get all the information afterwards when you share the presentation materials. You also get the recording. Thank you again, Antonio, for taking the time and putting
Thanks to you.
together the content for today's session.
Thanks, Tina, and thank you, everyone.
Then we hope that you also found some valuable insights in here. You can directly apply to your contract evaluations. Definitely also think about us if you have a project planned. We are happy to support you already in step 0. And yeah, with that being said, thanks a lot. Looking forward to see you in upcoming sessions. Just check out our website on Zalaris.com. Under events, you see what other topics we cover in the next few weeks. And yeah, with that being said, have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Okay, bye.